And we are live. Welcome back to another episode of the iFilmmaker podcast. My name is Ariel Martinez. We have Mr. Cervatelli with us, and we have a special treat for you guys on this episode as we've been promoting. We are a little bit late. You can blame Ryan for that. So, anyways,
it's on me.
Welcome Ryan Connolly from Filmright. Say hi to the people, Ryan.
Hi, people.
So no specific. We have several people already joining us live, and definitely appreciate you guys joining us. We're going to have a jam-packed episode on this one. We're going to be asking Ryan a ton of questions, both business and personal, and we're going to get real personal later. So stay tuned for that. We already went through all the limitations that there are no limits, basically. So he's open to everything. So our chat room is open, guys. Go ahead and start flooding us with your questions. We're going to go ahead and get started with some very basic generic questions just to get the ball rolling here. Ryan, thanks for coming on, dude.
Yeah, absolutely, man.
It was awesome to meet you over at NAB. We met you, some of your crew. I think it was Chase and Seth Worley and missing one guy. Lucas, there you go. You guys
don't forget the editor, man.
The editor is always forgotten for some reason. So let's go ahead and obviously
tell Lucas that.
Yeah. They're so important, but oh man, they get swept under the rug, unfortunately, sometimes.
Yeah.
Let's start with, obviously, Filmright needs no introduction. And I'm sure you've answered this like 100 times on the show. How did it begin? Why did it begin? It's a show that requires a lot of your time. It requires whoever's upholding it requires a lot of the time. Yeah. How did you get that started? Why did you get that started?
It started in like 2000, 2007, 2008-ish. It went online officially 2009, but earlier I was trying different iterations, probably 2008. It was probably about like 6 months to a year before it actually went online, probably. But it started as something that I was just doing on my own and putting on YouTube. And that was back in the day when like YouTube would actually put stuff on a featured page and you could be featured by, they were actually looking at things and they were wanting people to create content like that because it was still new or whatever. New-ish. So it started in that time frame, and Rev3 got a wind of it, and then it became Filmright. They helped me develop it a lot further, helped me come up with a better name. They just wouldn't let me stop until I came up with a name that I actually liked. I kept being like, "Oh, this is fine," and they're like, "You don't love it? Keep going."
What were some of the names that you guys were?
I only remember what it was originally called, which was Making the Film. And then, which is terrible. and then I remember the worst idea, which was Filmtastic.
What?
That was an actual name that we floated for.
Was Making the Film the idea of you wanted to like show your process of starting to create one day creating a fefeature film? So
right, yeah. So the idea was kind of like it was way more focused in on what the general idea of Filmright is. So it was like the inception of Filmright was, I want to make films. I know I'm new. I was always self-aware. I'm like, man, I'm green. I went to film school and everything, but I went to film school so I could get out of film school and start learning. It's like, okay, I know the buttons. Now let me start understanding them. And that's what matters to make something really good. And then I had friends who weren't able to go to film school and they were just like really discouraged about the whole thing. But really passionate about film, and that got me thinking about that, on how everything's so tight to the chest and there's nothing really out there. At the time it was like camera reviews and like prop builds. That was pretty much it. So I was that's what gave me the idea of maybe we could put something out that I'm not the end all be all. I'm not a professor by any stretch of the imagination, but we're trying to learn. So what if we just put that out there? I'll put out what I've learned, how I figured out how to pull things off with no money, and it'll follow our trajectory, because I had 5-10 years goals at the time, and the show will follow that. So initially the idea was way more focused in on I'm going to try to make a feature, I'm going to try to make bigger short films, and this will follow that progress. But all the while I can keep sharpening my teeth on little sketches, which was always an idea of like these sketches that I have to do weekly are going to be great you know, little workouts, little training sessions. And by doing all these little ones where I don't have time to be precious with it, I don't have time to try to make it, you know, 100%. It's not going to look 100%. It's not going to, you know, the cut's going to be rough when it goes out. Every sketch was rough. Every sketch was not, you know, what we could do if we really spent time on it, obviously. So it wasn't really an indication of even the skill level at the time, or even now when we do them, they're not. But that's kind of the charm of them. They're their own thing. They're not supposed to be that. They're supposed to be this thing where you go in, you try an idea quickly, and you put it out there. It's not, you know, trying to be a short film. But by doing those, even though I wasn't spending a ton of time, I always say that it was like learning how to play the guitar, electric guitar, by starting on the acoustic guitar first. And then by the time you get to the electric, you're like, my God, this is so easy. Just because you're doing so much, and it's so hard to do like that many with that little, and trying to pull off bigger ideas and make them, you know, look good, and then show how we did it. So it was really an education for me as well. But that's why we did it. And then we shifted the name away from Making the Film, because I didn't want it to be so focused in on we're making these films and that's why the show exists, but we're also doing this along the way. I wanted to encompass everything. And Film Riot worked for me because it, at the time, was a way of doing things completely differently. Just changing the way you think about making films, going about making films, pulling off effects, why you do them. So Film Riot just made the most sense once we came up with that name. Did I answer the question, or just for a while?
Just a little bit. We're already
like
here.
I asked that question on every podcast.
You answered all of our questions, so thanks for
That's
coming on.
Pretty much the end of the show.
Bye, guys.
So, back then when you started, how many were, if any, how many other channels were there like that?
None.
Did you have some sort of template that, or this is everything is from like scratch, like nothing?
No. Because Rev 3 came on board. Rev 3 was like the NBC of the internet at the time. This was when MCNs were like the gatekeepers. If you really wanted to do something like that, that's how you did it. Everybody was on one. It was very difficult to get out there. They put a ton of marketing behind it. They would fly you places to do interviews. Like, it was very much like a little network online. Now, not so much. Now it's, you know, everybody just does it. Well, not everybody, but a lot of people are on MCNs even when you don't know it. But now it's a lot different than it was back then. But the only thing that was out there was like, Andrew was doing like After Effects tutorials, but very differently than what we wanted to do. And Philip Bloom was doing like camera reviews, and then there was that show Indie Mogul, but they really just did like prop builds and stuff like that. They really didn't teach filmmaking. And you know, they even said it openly, like, we never went to film school, we have no training, we love doing this. Whereas we wanted to go about it in a different way. So there was really no template for it, especially the type of show that we were making. I remember when Rev 3, they weren't just like, hey, come do the show for us. I actually had to put together a pitch, and this is what I want to do. Here's, you know, my plan for the next 4 months of episodes. You know, they wanted to see that, you know, I had a vision for where this thing was going, and why it mattered and why it was different. And you know, the way I pitched the show to them, the way I wanted to do it, was Mythbusters meets Family Guy. So it wasn't pulling from anything off YouTube. It was pulling from things that I really liked on television. And that was sort of, you know, the goal. Whereas, like, I wasn't trying to hit the mark of YouTube or any kind of online video. I was trying to hit the mark of, you know, way above that. And, you know, we didn't up front, but, you know, that was the aim. And I don't know. I think Family Guy meets Mythbusters is pretty good.
Yeah, your cutaways. Your cutaways are epic, man. Actually, the episode you just put out, those things with Josh calling you, cut to me. That was cracking me up yesterday, man, and watching that one. So I love that idea. I never thought of it that way, but that's exactly what you, I guess, still go for. It's really funny. But yeah, I have a question. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, it's just we've always thought about it just like being ourselves, you know. It's like and it's literally what happened. I was working on putting together the episode, and Josh literally said, "This is boring, man. This is gonna be boring." And I'm like, "Well, let's just point that out then." And he's like, "Okay." And,
was that?
But it was funny because that's how it was. I'm like, "Dude, this is not boring. This is great. Sounding is amazing. Sound is awesome. This is so cool." And he's like, "This is boring, dude. This is gonna be a boring episode."
Wait, are you saying that wasn't planned?
No, it was planned.
Oh, okay.
Behind the scenes was literally what we did in the episode. Josh was like bored and being hyper, and I'm like, no, it's a cool episode. And we're like, you know what, let's just do this exactly. And that's kind of always been the idea behind it. Is just we just want to bring our actual sense of humor and personality to it. It's more fun for us, and I guess more fun for people that watch it too, thankfully.
It's hilarious.
I have a question about going back to the YouTube stuff, which I find interesting. Is did you see the potential in YouTube then when you're pitching, when you're pitching Revision 3, you thought, oh, this could be a moneymaker, I could build a following? That was your idea. It wasn't just, I just want to share my knowledge. Like, you saw that.
I mean, obviously, a big reason that I wanted to do it was that idea of cataloging it, putting it out there. And, I was never arrogant enough to be like, I'm going to teach people, I'm going to help them. That was never, but it was like, man, how cool would it be to just be open? Yeah. And, I had been through some pitch meetings and stuff locally for production companies, nothing like film, but like local commercials and crap. And there was nothing. I Googled things as much, and there was nothing out there to tell me anything, to help me at all, even at the lowest level. And I was like, man, how cool would it be if I was just honest and I just went out there and, hey, this is really freaking hard. This is really hard. And here's what happened to me. And later on down the road with outsiders and proximity, I actually did that, and we were very honest with how things fell through financially, and our short film fell apart, but we did another one anyway. And that was kind of always the idea behind that. But it was also like, I want to be a filmmaker. I want to make films, and if you can create a community that cares what you're making, an audience that wants to see what you're making, like, even if no one will give me permission to make one, well, now I don't need it. I have people who will actually want to watch my stuff, so we were able to build a stage that way. And that was, definitely a part of it, because I was always just thinking, like, I want to make film. How do I do that? I'm in Florida. I don't know anybody. I have no network,
build your own, right?
Yeah. So why don't I just build this myself? Let's just do it my way.
What part of Florida was that again?
I was all over the place. I was in Orlando for film school. I worked in Miami for a while, lived in Weston, Boca. I don't know if any of these names mean anything.
I'm in Miami. That's why. So that's why.
Okay. Right on. Yeah. I used to work for Alienware down there.
Alienware. Nice.
Yeah,
I didn't know that.
Now it's Dell. Dell bought them out while I was there.
Oh, nice. But they still put out Alienware.
Yeah. So stuff, Alienware became, while I was there, Alienware became Dell's gaming division.
Nice.
So they're just like, instead of making one, let's just buy one.
Nice. Now, when you I guess when you started YouTube back then, how much has it changed for you now? Like, what's the main difference?
As far as the show, or
well, the different features, that, like, how the platform itself has evolved. How has it helped?
Different.
Right, exactly. That's what I'm imagining.
Analytics really didn't exist.
Right.
You had that, like, view counter. You could cheat. Like, people were cheating like crazy. Like, there used to be like these apps that you could get.
Oh yeah, I could imagine.
People would just refresh. And I was like, why are you doing that? Because now you don't know. It's like the same thing. People will buy subscribers or followers on Twitter and stuff. They pay a company, and the company goes and finds. That way, if you're like, you can always see, oh my God, they have 1 million followers, and you go look and they're following 900,000 people, and, like,
and they get like 10 and they get like 10 likes.
And it looks nice and everything, but people are getting savvy to that, man.
Oh,
and
that
just means your engagement is garbage. These
of
are
course
not true follows. Nobody's paying attention to anything you tweet.
Exactly.
And there was that sort of thing going on, to where you could do this. There was an add-on where it would just, like, automatically refresh the page constantly.
Oh wow!
And every time you refreshed it, it would give you a view. So people were getting all these views back in the day just by refreshing it, but they weren't true. So you'd go and look at the lights, and it was like 0 likes, 0 comments, and you're like, okay,
1 million views.
I see what's happening here. But I never understood that, because it's not giving you a gauge of your success. So it's like, how did this video do compared to that one? You're able to tell now. So I never got that, but they cracked down on stuff like that. Now you have actual analytics where you can go in and see the way that you upload. And I mean, it's completely different. It is so different. I remember when we first started on YouTube, it wasn't even 1080. It wasn't 1080 for a while. I actually had to convince the Rev 3 folks to go to YouTube, because we were just putting like pieces of the show up on there. We weren't putting the actual episodes. And I was just like, man, we need to be on YouTube's the place. It's like, that's where people can connect and have conversations, and they don't, they're already having an account there, so it's just let's just put it there. That should be the central hub, not because it used to be like red3.com and everything would be on there, and they had their own comment section, but that comment section sucked, and I was like, man, we need to be on, because that's where I started. So I just wanted to get back on there because that community was solid and building. But yeah, man, it's totally different.
Have you ever gone back to your like first film, right, early, let's say year one? Have you ever gone back to see those episodes? How often do you do that and laugh at yourself?
Yeah. Often. No, I laugh at myself often. But not because of that, just I'm very insecure. We'll see them pop up, or somebody will send it to us, and then I'll get in a vortex of like, remember when? Because I mean, it's like 8 years now, right? Something like that.
Yeah, it's been a while.
Do you know how many episodes it's been?
809.
Oh,
goodness gracious!
The 809th episode is what we're working on right now, and that's not counting.
That's not counting Mondays.
Quick tips.
Oh, okay.
That counts Mondays, but it doesn't count quick tips or any other like extra episode that we put up. So if there's like 3 things we put out, we don't number those. So Monday and Thursdays are the only ones numbered. So I mean, all in all, we're probably pushing like 900 to 1,000.
Wow.
But as far as like official episodes, 809 is the one that I'm working on right now.
Nice.
That's amazing, man.
Yeah.
That's so good.
You gotta do something for the 1,000th episode. I don't know what yet, but
you have to. You've got to. I love
that's gonna come freaking quick too, because 2 episodes.
I know. This is you're on. So you're on our 100th episode, and as I mentioned to you,
congrats.
Thank you. I appreciate that. But after hearing your number, that's like, dude,
yeah. Yourself. Let's not talk about that.
800.
Come on,
get on my level.
Yeah. So I mean, I think it's a great milestone. I'm sure when you hit your 100th episode,
podcast. Yeah, I don't even have my first episode of the podcast up yet. So you definitely got me.
I noticed you had mentioned something. You were going to start a podcast. You guys still working on that?
Oh yeah, it's gonna come out this month, probably the end of the month, last week of the month.
Very cool. And is it gonna be called Film Right? And
yeah, it's just gonna be the Film Right podcast. I went through a bunch of names, but then I was like, why? It's all Film Right. Just keep it within the brand. That way people find it easy.
Exactly.
It.
Oh yeah, it's not gonna be confused.
So I was gonna call it Filmtastic, but then I was like, nah.
Making a film? No.
yeah. But it's gonna be cool, man. It's just conversations with filmmakers.
Nice.
Recording one with the editor of John Wick 2 and 3 next week. Trying to get Barry McCreary on there. Already did one with Ryan Booth. A couple people. I'm not gonna plug my podcast in your podcast.
Do it. Yeah. Absolutely. This is what it's about.
Listen to us, please, God.
I definitely.
Only if you plug our podcast on your podcast.
You know,
come on now.
All right, we got a deal.
So yeah, definitely. You know who's a good contact for that? Would be what's his name? The guy that does the Go Creative show. I've been in contact with him.
Yeah, Ben.
Ben Consoli. So
I just did the show with him a little bit ago.
Oh, nice. Yeah. So I've been on him. He wants to come on the show, and I want to have him on the show. And his schedule, our schedule is like he's always shooting all the time. Right. So we're trying to get that set up there. But definitely, he always has these awesome, some great guests on his show all the time. So I think that's a great podcast to go check out, the Go Creative Show.
Yeah,
there's a plug for him.
Yeah, I was listening to it for years. So when he was like, "Come be on," I was like, "Yeah, sure."
Yeah, no, that's definitely a good podcast for sure. So, all right, so let's go ahead and here's a funny question here. If you can go back and redo an episode, I'm sure that there's so many, but would you redo any episodes? Which one is the one that you look at and you're like, my goodness?
I mean, most recently, the Thor episode we did, not the most recent one, but the one we did before that bummed me out. But way back, I mean, there's so many where I'm like, we put that out. We did that. Way back it's got like 25 freaking million views. It's by far our most viewed episode ever. Yeah, and it's because it said Exorcist and something else, and Paranormal Activity just came out, and YouTube's algorithm was like, yeah, shove this to the top.
Oh wow.
But it was an episode where I did the whole episode in a day, because I think what happened was the hard drive I had on it crashed in the middle of post on the episode, so I had to do the whole episode in a day and get it back out. and it is terrible. It is so bad. It looks dreadful. The pacing is awful. It's just awful. And it has like 25 million views. So it's like the least good example of what the show was is the one that has like the most views of anything we've ever put out. So that kills me on the inside slowly. But for the most part, beyond that, it's just like, no, I want people to be able to go back and be like, that sucked. Like if you think we're any good now, then I think that's awesome to be able to go back and see how bad we were.
Oh my gosh.
And there's just a progression. And that was always an idea behind it, is like, I knew like I'm not very good right now, but I need to build my experience, and I'm gonna do it publicly, because maybe one day we'll be doing some stuff that's pretty cool, and then people will be able to go back through the catalog and look at how much we embarrassed ourselves over the year. And I mean, that'd be great to see. I mean, even as like I finally started, getting some connections and finding some mentors, and being able to talk to people who are actually doing the things that I want to do one day, hearing what they say behind closed doors, it was just like, dude, why don't you just say this publicly? That would be so helpful to people. And then hearing from them what their mentors say, who's like some of the top, like, like, I would die if I met you people, and they're saying the same stuff that we all say. It's like, why don't they just say this publicly? That'd be so helpful to like up and coming filmmakers. Whereas like for me, I just always felt like, wow, I was just so insecure as a filmmaker, and I'm just never going to be able to do this, and I don't know what I'm doing, and all these people do know what they're doing. Why don't I know what I'm doing? It's like, nope, none of us do. Literally none of us do.
Exactly, man. That's so good. That's so good. I think that's like, if anything, and anybody that watches that or listens to our podcast, we're extremely transparent about everything that we go through. I'll come out and say, I messed up on this. This is how I fixed it. This is my way of fixing it. But I think it's great. I don't think that many, filmmakers that put stuff out there, and absolutely, I am very, I guess, a little intimidated about people judging the way that I work. But that is why my initial response is, my initial response is like, look, guys, this is what works for me. And, this might not work for you. So, and like I mentioned to you at NAB, we do a lot of gear talk. We talk a lot about gear. And even when posting it, you'll always have those messages that, why are you using the microphone on top? It should go on the bottom, or
because that's where I put it. Okay.
Oh my gosh. Oh man.
I've just landed on like, look at my stuff. Did you like the end result? Okay, we'll shut up then.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Like,
it's so good.
Like people even talking about like, oh, I have a PVC thing, is I feel so cheap. I'm like, how's the end result look?
Yeah. Does it work?
Can you
Who
tell
cares?
the difference?
Yeah.
Okay.
You can't. Exactly. So exactly. So my clients don't ask me to bring unless they ask for a red, I'll bring a red, but I think
that's one unfortunate part about YouTube, and how many videos are out now, is like clients and stuff are getting savvy with all that stuff. So they're asking for certain things. Do you have a movie? It's like, yeah, we have a movie. Stuff.
I get so many.
Going back a little bit to episodes I wish we could undo, is there was a time frame where I finally pulled the trigger and left Alienware, and I had to sell a bunch of gear, and because I didn't have any money whatsoever. I was going to live out of my car probably, because I was just going full 100% trying films, and Filmrack still wasn't really making money, which I didn't live out of my car, thankfully, but that looked like what was going to happen for a second there. Wow. But a friend was like, no, just sleep on my couch. And I'm like, dope, I'm in. So I did that. But during that time frame, I had to hit up Revision 3 and be like, hey, there's a problem. I don't have access to a camera anymore. So help, mom. And they were like, okay, we'll send you a camera. And I'm like, sweet. All right, thanks. And it was just a loaner camera, but it gets there and it's a home video like handy cam.
Oh,
like
no.
Wow.
You know what I'm saying? Like with, I think it was like not high 8 tapes, obviously, but it was like the HD tapes. Remember those? Those mini HDV tapes.
Yeah.
Oh, and I was just like, holy God, are you kidding me? So we shot the show for, I don't even know, it was like 4 to 6 months on that stupid thing. Oh. So there's a huge chunk of film that just looks absolutely terrible. And I had nowhere to shoot it. I had no studio to shoot it in anymore. So I shot it at like my parents' house against their wall, and I would just hit lights on the wall to try to blow the wall out to make it kind of look like a studio. but it looks so unbelievably bad and sounds so unbelievably bad.
Well, before that, you were using a green screen.
Mm-hmm.
And
then we
okay, so I think I think I know which episode you're talking about. It was like a tan background.
Yeah, we had a little bit of that, and then I tried to make it better by like blowing it out with lights, and then it just looks so bad. So bad.
I know exactly what episode you're talking about.
But then we ended up doing like a deal with B&H, and they loaned us a Sony X1 or something, like, or EX3, or I don't remember what it was. And then we finally got off that POS Handycam. But those were dark days.
Oh my goodness. I mean, that's awesome to hear that kind of stuff, like the stuff that you obviously had to go through.
Well, that leads to a good question about to YouTubers that want to get started, even if they don't have all the gear, they don't have all the know-how, they don't have a lot of everything they think they would want or have in the future. You know, you started, like you said, almost at living out of your car with the crappiest camera. Like, do you have any other advice to them?
Dude, we're at such a great place with gear now, where it's like the phone I have currently with me is a 10 times better, higher quality, more cinematic looking image than that. I think it was $800-900 Handycam that they sent me, which was pure garbage. Just looked like home video. So it's like now there's literally zero excuses, and there's so much. It's a thing that bums me out about. I was just talking to somebody else about this. Is just the current the generation, the youngsters.
There you go.
Apparently just how things are now, unfortunately, which is a negative, and it isn't helpful for them, is that everything's so obtainable. You can put something on YouTube and maybe get some views right away. Your phone is a great camera right now, that everything.
Oh my gosh.
You can edit on your phone. It's made a lot easier.
What would you get for an iPhone back then? One of these iPhones.
I didn't have it though. Like, I used to say that, but now I think about it, it's like back then it's like I had to figure out how to make it work in any way I possibly could.
It forced you to be creative.
Yeah, I was editing VCR to VCR, or I was editing in camera, like just start stop edits. And I was just telling somebody else about this, is I would play a song from a soundtrack that I liked, and I would listen to it over and over and over and over and over again, and just lock in the pace of what I wanted to shoot in my head, and then try to actually go shoot that pace from that I was listening to from the music. And I would shoot that out, and then I would go from VCR to VCR, but not to edit, because I would edit in camera, start and stopping, and I would just play the music into the new tape. Jeez. And it would sync up a lot of times. After a while of doing that, it would start to sync up. And I think that really taught me pacing, because I learned pacing through musical cues, and then tried to follow those musical cues. So I think without knowing it, I was subconsciously teaching myself, how to properly pace something.
Yeah.
And it just kept going like that. Then I made videos for a youth group, and I would do the same thing. I would edit all in camera, or edit VCR to VCR, and then I would just play the music live through the thing, because I had no way of getting the music on there if I edited VCR to VCR. And these were the ways that I had to do it. So it was painstaking, and you did it because you absolutely adored it. And it was such a great way to learn. And the only focus was on just making a thing, because you couldn't help yourself. You had to do that. Whereas now it's like there's such a concentration on what can I make that'll get a lot of views. It's just like, stop thinking that way. Those aren't the things that are going to get a lot of views. Make something that, well, I mean, I guess that's not necessarily true, but you never know. I mean, the odds of getting like something going viral is so
saturated. And you say this all the time. Yeah. It's so saturated right now.
So saturated. And sure, if you do something revolving around Avengers, when Age of Ultron comes out, you have a much better chance at it going viral. But then it doesn't, and you made something you really didn't care about because you're just chasing views. What was the point? So for me, it's just about whatever gear you have, just make things. Don't put a huge concentration on trying to make this the most cinematic. Oh, I wish I had a Red or an Alexa. Who cares? If the content isn't great or good, if the content sucks, the Red's not going to help you. It's still gonna suck.
And man, I say this all the time. I used to work with the Red Dragon all the time. And I've seen the difference, and that actually working with the camera actually let me appreciate the fact that I actually don't need it. Like, for the way that I shoot, for the way that I like to shoot, I prefer not to have it rather than have it. And all you get, and I say this all the time, you're gonna get 6K of high quality crap if it's not well exposed, you know? So, so even then,
I mean, don't get me wrong, the Alexa Mini is my current favorite camera.
There you go.
So, I mean, you know,
Traitor.
That's not, I mean, my latest short film, which is my, you know, definitely the best thing we've ever done by far, was shot on a sub $10,000 camera. We shot it on the C200.
Yeah.
And the whole thing's in partnership with Canon, but because I went after them, not the other way around. It wasn't them being like, hey, if you shoot on the C200, we'll give you money. I was like, hey, would you guys want a partner? Because I would totally be down to shoot on the C200. Because I did a review episode and I was blown away by the camera.
Yeah.
I even cut it with some Alexa footage and I couldn't tell. I forgot which one was which. I mean, obviously the Alexa is 1,000 times better and it just makes it easier.
Right.
Whereas the C200, it's a lower cost camera, so you do have to be aware of some of the limitations, of course. But if you are, you can pull off the same thing. So I really love the idea of doing the biggest project we've ever done, one that I'm the most excited and passionate about that we've ever done, and I'm not using an Alexa. I'm using a C200. I'm using something that's totally accessible by pretty much all filmmakers, especially if you want to rent it. It's not that expensive. So it was another instance of deciding to go with something because I knew, you know, the gear wasn't going to matter in the end with this. And we wanted to do it as an example of, you know, people are going to see it and think we use an Alexa or something. It's like, nope, no, we didn't.
That looks great. And in addition to that, we're actually at NAB. We saw the trailer to
looked amazing.
Ballistic.
Thanks, man.
It looked fantastic. Like you wouldn't, like you said, you wouldn't think that that was shot in a sub $10,000 camera. It definitely looked legit. And I thought it was hilarious though when they were announcing you guys. And the lady that was announcing, it was funny because Anthony and I were sitting there laughing because she goes, and we understand that the trailer's not out yet. This is only where this is exclusive. And then they announce you, and she's asking, we're gonna have Ryan from Film Riot.
But you've all seen
he's gonna be talking about Ballistic. Who has seen Ballistic? The trailer for Ballistic? We're like, nobody raised their hand.
And I think at one point they referenced the film as like my show. Like, you all watch the show Ballistic? And I'm like,
oh my god.
I don't know how closely you work with I forget the guy's name that was hosting the interview, but it was
that was the first time I met him.
It was slightly awkward.
You met him on stage for the first time?
We met him off stage for 2 seconds.
Oh wow.
I mean, he was asking questions that he wouldn't even finish the question and kind of expecting you to respond. It was a little awkward to watch.
Filmmaking? Does that answer it?
It was very awkward. I mean, I don't even know how to explain it to people who are listening right now, but it was an awkward interview.
Anthony and I looked at each other, then we looked at you guys before you got on stage. You guys are laughing too because nobody has seen the trailer.
Yeah, no, this is a new thing. This is new.
Let's talk about
stuff though. It makes it fun.
Let's talk about Ballistic a little bit since we're on the topic. Sure. I know you've been mentioning you're releasing the trailer at the end of this month or early June, which probably, I'm sure everyone's excited to see.
I'm looking at early June, like first week of June.
And what do you plan to do with the short itself? Are you going to release it on Canon? Is it going to be on Film Riot? When do you plan to do that?
Put it up like we put up everything. I don't do short films that are like bought out by a company.
Sure.
I basically, the way we were able to get like sponsors and stuff on these things is I call them partners or collaborators, because that's really what it is I go to companies like Adobe, like Canon, which people have seen me preaching since day one of Film Riot when, you know, I didn't have connections to anybody. It's just the stuff that I really love. I love Canon's color. Like I said, I openly say Alexa. The Alexa is currently my favorite camera to shoot on. But you take that.
How dare you?
Equation, how dare I? You take that out of the equation, and Canon by far is they're my favorite cameras. I just love how they look. The C300 is gorgeous. We shot Sentinel on the C300 all in camera, looked fantastic. With the C200 sub 10,000, we're shooting raw internal, and there's just a lot to. It was a really impressive camera. I don't want this to turn into an ad for them.
Do it, man.
I'm honestly very impressed by this camera because I rented it from Lens Pro, and I did the review, and I was just like, well, damn. I mean, it's a very specific camera. I wouldn't want to shoot on the MP4 all the time.
I was going to say, is that only a camera you're going to want to shoot raw on?
Well, no, we shot all the BTS
in 1080
Sentinel in 4K on the MP4, and it looks really good. It looks really good.
That's
but,
actually.
I mean, I wouldn't shoot like anything above that on the MP4, of course. And the raw workflow is not that bad, and it's getting better, but it is a little like hefty. So
Sure.
it's definitely a specific camera. Like if you're going around and you're shooting a lot of short films and you're documentaries, whatever it is, I think this is super, super solid, especially at its price point. But for like Film Riot, it wouldn't make a whole lot of sense because of how quick all our turnarounds are. Something more like the C300, even though that's like way above its price range. No, the price came down. I think you can get it for like 12,000 now, right?
That's it.
No.
Just off that.
Where's it listed that?
I think when it came out, it was 15,000. I think C300 Mark II is like, I think you're right. I think it's about 12,000 around there.
So cheap, my God! It's just a car. But I mean, like, what actually we shoot on, and that works great.
What's your favorite SLR right now?
None of them.
None of them.
It depends. The only thing that I've used an SLR for and not wanted to throw myself out something was the what was it, the Canon, the new, is it 60D or the 60, right?
Did you vlog on that with the editing stuff?
I did.
Yeah.
Editing stuff.
With the editing Ballistic.
Oh yeah. That's what I used for when I went to St. Louis, and it just because I asked my friends over at Lens Pro, I'm like, hey, it's kind of like a vlog sort of thing. What? I don't know. I don't do this.
It's not my style.
What camera should I use, please and thanks? And they're like, do this one. So I tried it out and I loved it. For that sort of thing, it was amazing. The only other thing like that would be like the A7S 2, because of its low light. It's so great. But
no, it's amazing.
Beyond that, I mean, that's what I do Mondays on. I just have it mounted behind my monitors and it looks great. So it's great for stuff like that. But if I'm shooting like Film Riot and whatnot, just not having proper audio and camera, which is another reason I love Canon, like their internal audio features are great. It sounds so good. Like Sentinel was all internal audio and it sounds great. And there was no ADR or Foley. Well, I guess there was a little on location, but it sounds great. So for the most part, I just don't like the form factor. I don't like how some of the compression issues that it has. So I like to stay away from them as much as possible. But you can hand like even like a 5D Mark II from back in the day to an extremely talented DP and hand like me and Alexa, and his is going to look way better. So again,
just look at Act of Valor with Shane Hurlbut. That was amazing. When I found out that I was on a 5D, incredible. I couldn't believe it.
Film mixed in and other things as well, but it was like mostly the 5D, and it totally cuts together. I think there was a few GoPro shots in there.
Wow.
Shane just doesn't care. He's just like, does it got a sensor? Give it to me.
He's a savage. My goodness. So let's get into a little bit of I guess tech talk. A while back, I don't know exactly how long ago, you made the switch from Mac to PC.
Mm-hmm.
I guess I wanted to follow up on that. How's that going? Do you ever see yourself going back to Mac? Or
I hate Mac, and anybody who likes it is not my friend. No, I'm kidding.
I know that's not true.
People love to like draw lines in the sand with that.
Oh, stuff. No.
I did not want to go to PC at all.
Right.
It was painful.
Yeah.
It was like I went through a grieving period. But it's just so expensive to get a Mac that was, even half the speed of the PC I was able to get. It's just so much cheaper to get or even build a PC that's just an absolute powerhouse. And Mac was irritating me a lot with how much they weren't releasing things for pros, or they would, and they would be like, what? Why isn't this and this in there? It is with PC. So it was a necessity thing. Like I had to get a more powerful machine, and I just didn't have the budget to lay down 13 grand on a Mac. So it was just, I think it was more than that actually.
Wow.
So I went PC for that reason, and my entire company has gone PC because for like $2,000, I'm getting something that would have cost me like 8 for a Mac or 6 or whatever. I'm probably exaggerating quite a bit, but it's a whole lot.
In terms of power and the actual raw power that you need.
I do like the Mac OS way better personally. Yeah, it's just a personal thing. Like once you're in Premiere, you're in Premiere.
Yeah, that's definitely true. And that is actually what has me attached. I love the Mac OS. I love to be.
I have my laptop, so I have my Mac laptop, which is my personal computer, and I actually do all my emailing, all like business type stuff I do on there. Just
so you're pretty much just editing on your PC.
Yeah, it's just post-production stuff is on my PC. So anything that I need a lot of power for, I'm jumping over here. Anything else, I'm on my Mac because I just like how it all works better. Keynote pages, being able to text things to people right from my laptop, how it connects to my phone and my iPad and my Apple TV. It's just really convenient. I'm sure I could do all the same things with PC if I switch everything over, but then that would take me trying to figure all that out. And I just
man,
I'm too deep. I'm too deep.
You're in that Apple vortex there that they have you.
And I thought about like building a Hackintosh out, but I was like, I don't want to go through the hassle and headache of that. And again, once I'm in Premiere, it doesn't matter.
Exactly, it's all the same.
It just took me like 2 weeks to get used to like the keyboard basically, and then it was fine.
Nice.
I don't want to do that, man. I'm in the same boat with you, grieving through that. I'm scared. I don't know why. Just love Mac. I love the operating system. One day.
Yeah,
one day.
Definitely. I'm on that same page.
Lucas, my editor, just made the switch over to PC for the exact same reason, and he was also not super excited. But once he got on it, he was like, "God, yes, it's so fast."
Really?
Oh man. Sounds so tempting.
It really does. It really does.
It's cheaper. It's so much cheaper, and you can upgrade it, so that's nice.
Nice. Oh yeah, that definitely is true. I'm still working on the Big Mac Tower. That it's actually pretty decked out because it's able to still be upgraded. But the newer ones, it's really you can't upgrade.
Oh, so you have pre-trash can?
Oh yeah,
dude.
Nice. Dude, and it's been upgraded. Like I definitely upgraded parts on there, and it's a monster. It's still a monster.
I'm just not super like savvy with computer internals and what have you. I know enough to get by, but
YouTube,
just calling my phone. Yeah, exactly.
The same platform. Like
I just don't have the time.
Oh no,
I have to watch this video. Is 15 minutes. Forget it.
No, I've been texting my friends. Because I'm actually considering the same move as well. But I mean, my computer's still working fairly well. But I text my friends, hey, how much could I how much money could I build a monster PC? Like how much money less, and just to have an idea if I ever make the change or not, though. So
man, if you go big enough, that stuff gets crazy expensive no matter what.
Oh my gosh, yeah. No, for sure. I mean, but I'm not buying Apple parts.
Them graphics cards.
Oh yeah, oh my goodness, that thing's expensive.
On the business topic, you said your whole company switched over to PCs. I'm interested in, this is not stuff you talk about too much, so if this is a deflect question, then go right ahead and do so. But
what's the weather like up there?
But everyone's gonna know.
Yeah, that's all right. If he doesn't want to answer, you can pass it right along. But I'm interested in stuff you do, because my production company is more of a company first, and I do YouTube stuff nowhere near to the level of that your app would love to be, but I don't put the full time into that to get there, and I know that. So my company is a company. We make money, So do you do stuff? Yeah. Do you do stuff on the side, or is there a lot of production company work that you do that's not involved with Film Riot that you kind of have going on in the background that we don't hear about?
I refuse to answer this.
All right.
I won't do it. No, I used to. Definitely in the beginning, I was doing that a lot. I talk about it a lot because they're the dark days. There was just, I think I went, my max was, I think, 4 days straight without sleeping at all.
And
then I started to hallucinate, and I was like, and we're done here. I was literally like sitting at my desk because I was doing Film Riot. I had quit the job full time, and I was doing Film Riot, and then I was doing this stuff for AMD. Which was like all computer generated type stuff, like 3D graphics type stuff for this ad that they were doing. and I had to do the music for it, and I was doing the cut for it, and I was doing a ton of After Effects with particles and text changes and having to track the 3D. It was just crazy. So it was just me and like one other person when really we needed like 6 people with the time frame that they gave us. So it ended up being just like there was just no sleep. So I'm at my computer and I'm working and I see someone like walk into the kitchen. And so I'm like, hey, can you make me coffee? Nothing. Like, make me coffee. And I look, there's no one in there. And I'm like, that's interesting. And I go back to work. Bell style fairy flies across my computer, I swear to God, and then comes back and dances across the keyboard. And it's kind of like not like dead on looking at it. It's kind of like peripheral type stuff. Like, what? And then as soon as that happened, I just sat there for a second. I was like, and we're done here. And I just went in and I took a nap for like 2 hours.
So that's your limit. When you start hallucinating,
once you start hallucinating,
that's when you know you really have to take a break.
That's the wake up call. Or the
oh my God.
So in the beginning, I did that stuff for sure. I would say for the past maybe 2-3 years, I haven't done anything like that. It's just been all focused on our own stuff. And I mean, you could say we do client stuff still because, you know, we have sponsors and things like that. And sometimes we'll do videos for sponsors, but it's the stuff that goes on our channel.
Right.
And I only do, it's a little more difficult because it's not just like any sponsor, any ad. It's like, this has to make sense. And I have to believe what I'm saying. It's like, I'm not going to make, we did like an editing action episode with an HP laptop. And I was like, cool, give me the laptop. I'll work with it. I'll actually edit with it. And if I, you know, believe these things you want me to say, I'll say them. And I did. And it was like, damn, like I was editing like red footage. Like I think it was like 6 or 8K red footage and not a single hiccup. It was crazy.
Wow.
So I was really impressed by it. So I was like,
beefed up, I'm sure.
Not too bad. It was only, it's like a $2,000 laptop, $2,500 laptop. I think it was.
PC, man. Way to go, right?
It was like crazy. And I was like, okay, let's do it. So then I did an episode, you know, editing action, and it was all, you know, sponsored by HP. So it's a little more difficult because it has to be like that. It's like, I have to actually want to say this or no thanks. Otherwise it's not helpful for us. It's not helpful for our audience. It's not helpful for the brand because I'm being disingenuous. So we still do that type of stuff, but you know, I have Film Riot, and then I have my other show called Variant, which is under Triune, and then we have our Triune store that we make a little revenue off of. So it's like all those legs that are going on all the time that help keep things afloat. From the beginning, it was always like, you know, my dad, I don't know where the quote came from. I've heard it other places, but he always tell me, you know, you got to throw enough stuff at the wall and eventually something is going to stick. And, you know, if you have a stool, you don't want one leg on the stool. You need as many legs as possible. Otherwise you're going to fall over. And I've always just, you know, kept that as a part of what I do. Is just, you know, the company's never doing one thing. It's doing as many things as I can at once. And you know, when one thing is, you know, starving a little bit, the other thing's doing well. You know, sometimes Film Riot is not doing super great and Variant's doing great, and then all of a sudden Variant's not doing super great and Film Riot's doing great. It's like, you know, it's just that's what happens. There's the hills and valleys, and if you have enough stuff going, usually everything's not in a valley at the same time.
Do you ever, and I don't know, it would be crazy if you guys had time to do this stuff, but do you ever have like focus groups where you're like brainstorming strategic plans to do things and I mean, literally intentionally look at your analytics and see, well, this market is looking at us, or this is what we're catering to. Do you guys have like top level executive stuff like what they usually do?
Not really.
No, right? I didn't think so.
I pretty much chased. I mean, you know, there's an element to that. Of course, it's a company, it's a business.
Sure.
So there's definitely an element of like, hey, this isn't bringing anything in, or this isn't working. You know, so it's not that it's not worth our time. Is that we can't allocate time to this anymore because it's just, you know,
right.
So there is that side of it, but more than anything else, everything within my company is something that I'm passionate about or somebody else is incredibly passionate about.
Right.
And so it's all led from that. So if I really want this, like that's how I go about our store. It's every product we put up, it's like, man, I really want this. So then we go and we make that, you know, or man, I wish this existed a year ago. So, you know, that means other people probably want it too. So let's go and make that. I kind of just chase that, chase passion and what I love. And so far that's served me well.
And you guys have been putting a lot of good stuff up on your store. I've been seeing it grow. I've actually purchased quite a few things from there. Some, nice. I think like LUT packs, sound packs. And
yeah, sound packs are awesome.
The sound packs are
those
really,
sound
really
packs
good.
are killer. Those are done by I work with Rob Krekel to do those, who's now the lead sound designer for Naughty Dog. So dude knows what he's doing.
Damn. Yeah. You guys have been doing some great stuff.
There's one thing I envy that you have going is with your family and film, right? Is your brother, both your brothers, as a producer, as a, you know, and Josh as an editor and shooter and all this stuff that he does, and Emily get involved in the acting. Is this something that they were into before you got into this? Did your older brother get you into this before you know, like, how did all that evolve that you're all involved in production?
I just had to make films, and then this came from that.
Please help me.
Yeah, and I was like, you know, they were willing to help me and not get paid for it because they love me and their family and they're awesome. That we're like a movie family though. Like everybody definitely had a passion for film, not necessarily making it. No one else was making film or anything like that. But you know, looking back on it, my parents super into film. As far as just watching them, just a movie loving family. Weekend hits, we're usually watching a movie together. That's how I grew up. And so yeah, my parents probably definitely, you know, subconsciously instilled this like intense love for film. It went beyond just loving, you know, the experience of film into I need to, you know, express myself this way. This is how I need to do it. So you know, it just evolved that way. I went to film school, and then I came back and did Alienware, and then started doing all this, and then everybody started helping out, and yeah, it just evolved in this way. It's like, hey, can you help me do this? Yeah, hey, you're pretty good at that. You want to keep doing it? Yeah, I kind of do. I was like, okay, cool. Let's just keep doing this together.
Now I can pay you.
Like, yeah, it's just been kind of like just finding our way together, basically.
That's really cool, man. I wish my family was involved enough in that to have that around.
Still do everything for free though. So greedy.
How could they?
How awesome was it to move into your own studio? How long have you been in the studio now over there at the offices?
Man, I think it's 2 years.
2 years?
I think so.
How awesome was that? Like that whole finally getting out of the house.
So great. Because it started in Florida. I was getting married, so I rented a house and it was great. And then I was the only one working out of it because I hadn't really started that whole train of, hey, actually come work for me. And then slowly but surely that started in Florida, and it was like, well, I don't have money for a studio, so let's just use the house. And then I got married, and it got my wife wasn't super stoked about it. And then we moved to Texas for business reasons, just nicer to small businesses and a whole lot cheaper. And I just started renting large houses. So I'd rent like a 4,500 square foot house, which was way cheaper than the house I had in Florida. And I would turn like the upstairs. Well, really, in the end, the entire house was the studio minus my bedroom and bathroom, pretty much. So it's like, you know, I was kind of renting it from myself in a way, like where I lived. And I just turned these big houses into studios. And then that went on for the first few years of Texas, and then my wife got pregnant, and then she had enough. She was like, okay, and we're done. But then our kid showed up, and then she was really done, and I was also like, yeah, I'm with you. This is kind of, we're done here. And it just didn't work anymore. It was just like, it was already, you know, obviously living where your studio is when you have like 5 or 6 employees coming every day is a little like you have no space of your own, and there was no disconnect for me too, which was the biggest problem. The last house I had, my bedroom was right down the hall from my office. So literally I would just roll out of bed, you know, stumble into the office, start working, roll out of my chair, stumble into my bed. You know what I mean? And that was when I was doing like the most consistent 7 days a week, 18 to 20 hour days. And it's just because, you know, when your office and your house are the same thing, it's really easy to do that. Cause it's also like, hey, come watch a movie with me. Oh, okay. But you're kind of still in your studio in your office. So there's no disconnect. So the entire time I'm doing this, I'm like, man, I should be working. I could be doing this. I need to answer that email. So mentally I was never separating myself from work. And that's one of the things that I found by having this studio is just, my house is my house. That's where I'm with my family. That's where, you know, I disconnect. That's where I'm not working. And when I'm at my studio, that's where I'm working. So it's been really easy to like disconnect that. And of course I'm here, my wife and kids are at the house. So it hits a certain time and I'm like, okay, I'm done. I want to go see my family. So it's been a lot easier to disconnect. So that's been great. I don't think that was the question, but there you go.
No, that's great. That's actually, I really enjoy it because I think so both Anthony and myself, we both are working from home, and I absolutely feel the same way. When I'm out of inside this room, I'm at work, I'm work mode, and I like to step out. Sometimes I even prefer, if the project is small enough, sometimes I even prefer to just pick up my laptop, get everything on a drive, and just relax on the couch and actually edit from there.
Totally.
I definitely prefer that.
Miss that.
Yes. That's something that I every chance I get, I try to do that, because I spend so many hours in here, and things start to, you start hallucinating, and so so yeah, definitely it's always good to disconnect like that.
Yeah, and I mean, if you could keep it all focused to one room in your house, I imagine it'd be a lot easier to try to still create a disconnect, but it was like it was the entire house.
No, for me it is just this room.
That's
sometimes fair. I have to do a small product shoot, and I have a small little thing that I make out there. But
so are you able to kind of like mentally separate it there, like that room's the office, the rest of the house, and you don't really have a problem disconnecting, or do you still find a problem like sort of having that divide?
You know what, that's hard to answer, because I've never, like, what I actually tried to do, I actually tried to go to a Starbucks and try to do some editing there. It helped some, but I don't know, it didn't help enough, I think, for me. But when I'm home, I don't think so, because when I relax, I kind of relax, and I kind of try to keep the editing work and all that stuff out of my mind. I'll watch a documentary, I'll watch some Netflix or whatever it is, and I try to keep that out of my mind. And if I have to answer some emails, that's fine. I'll pick, like you said, I'll pick up my laptop and I'll just start answering emails and do more like the financial side of stuff, invoicing and all that stuff. And I'll just do it off my laptop. Any chance, honestly, that I can get off this desk that I can work out of this desk, I'll always most likely take that. Because I spend so many hours here, and I'm sure Anthony does, and I'm sure you do too. It is a lot. It is a lot of hours. So.
I've never even looked at it like that, about disconnecting, which is not good. But I definitely roll out of bed, come right here to do work. I'm here till I go to bed, but because it's all right here. But I always thought, oh, it's because I love it. So maybe it's because I can't get away from it.
Right. So
that's the thing though, and especially after I had. Do either of you have kids?
No.
Okay, especially after I had kids. Like before I had kids is when the 7 days a week, 18 to 20 hours a day thing was happening, and that legitimately was what was happening for an entire. I mean, I took the first vacation since my honeymoon, like 7 years ago. So it was like 7 years since I had my next vacation. Anytime I traveled, it was all work.
Yes,
and once my wife got pregnant, it just struck me of like, man, I was kind of like. I worked 90% of that portion of our marriage, and I can't get that back, and the only regret I felt was not, I hadn't made a movie yet. The regret I felt was I could have spent a lot more time, making memories with my wife in that portion of our life before we hit this portion of our life, but I can't undo. And I've been trying to remind myself of that on a daily basis, because I kind of live creatively by this idea that I say on the show all the time. If you go a single day without creating something, that is a wasted day. Whether it's like I wrote a line of dialogue, I came up with an idea, I'm working on an idea, and I didn't write anything down, but I was thinking about it and I came up with it. Fine, whatever it is, as long as you created something that day as a creative, that was a successful day. The day that goes by that none of that happens, that's a wasted day, and that always worries me. But what I hadn't been thinking of, any day that I don't make a memory with my family is a wasted day. Like that balance needs to happen. There's this app called Daily Journal or something like that. And every day you put in like photos from that day or whatever. And it's just so you can go and look back. And especially with having kids, is like I can go and look back and remember like, oh, Riley said this for the first time, and here's the picture of whatever. And something that's been really ingraining is that everyday thing. Like every day
you have to put something in there.
Right. Every day, because that's just a day, especially kids that grow, like, it's blowing my mind. Like there's a lot of kids in my family. I have a lot of nieces and nephews. I'm very used to being around children, but when they're yours and seeing how fast they grow, it is crazy. It's like breakneck speed. It's like 1 week to the next, it's a brand new person. It's nuts.
Wow.
So it's just like trying to find that balance of, I need to create something every day, and I also need to make a memory with my family every day, and find that balance, because 10 years from now, I don't want to look back and be like, I was just making this, in the long scheme of things, pointless thing, when I could have been, doing this, making these memories that really matter. So I've been trying to do that a lot more.
That's good. And throughout the years, I've always seen you mention that, you have to take some time off and, spend time with your family, because that's extremely important. And I think that's a really good point that you touch on. We always talk about how busy we are, and, just creating and working. But obviously, both Anthony and myself are able to do that. We don't have a full-on family yet. And I think it's very important to I guess know that
now's the time then.
yeah, now's the time where you can afford
now's the time to roll out of bed right into your chair.
Definitely.
But it's also, it's like that was one of my problems when I felt a little creatively starved a little bit, is because I wasn't experiencing enough of life. I was just working, so I was only emptying the tank, not refilling it. So I mean, that's important too. We got to refill the tank to be, the creative people that we want to be. That's what you're pulling from. You're pulling from life. So if you're not living it, well, you're pulling from an empty well.
Yeah, that's a great point.
That's good. I definitely want to get to some of these questions. We've been telling people they can ask their questions live, and we've been going throughout. People have been already asking their questions. Don't worry, guys. We're not ignoring you. We're just enjoying the conversation. So let's go ahead and start. This first one seems to be like some techie question. So for Bobby Hicks is asking, are Ryan and the FilmRight team planning on shooting future skits in ProRes RAW, or is it just overkill for YouTube? So I'm sure you've heard of ProRes RAW.
Yeah.
That's like the biggest
That was
deal.
like a big question at any beat too. And the answer is, I don't care. That's the answer.
I figured you had a response something like that.
I mean, I care to some extent, but at the same time, I don't care. It's better quality, cool. I really doubt I would do it for FilmRight, because you're not going to see that. In the end, it's going to compress it down like crazy either way. So for fast turnaround stuff, nah. For like short films and stuff, if that's what my DP wants to shoot on, super duper. But I mean, not to be like so dismissive of the question, but I just really lately, more than anything, just want to be pushing and preaching the whole, it doesn't matter. Exactly. It doesn't matter. Soderbergh just shot a feature on an iPhone. It doesn't matter. I mean, I wouldn't do it, but it's definitely a gimmicky thing that you would want to be very specific about.
Right.
And I mean, tech is great. I obviously am a tech head behind the scenes. I've been more quiet about it recently, but I love cameras. I love, all this stuff. I've looked up the ProRes stuff too, but it's like, at the end of the day, do we want to, be tech, or do we want to be creative? And it just doesn't matter. If the film's great, there you go. But I guess to answer the question, no, not on FilmRight for sure. Short films, sure. Yeah,
that's awesome.
Get that dynamic range that they say is in there that Ariel can't figure out.
Oh my gosh.
ProRes is great. Just because it's so universal, I never had problems with it. It never shifts the image. It always, DNX HD can sometimes for me. I've had some issues with that. I like Cineform a lot. I like crap on tech stuff. Now we're talking. I like Cineform a lot. I use that for the most part with like VFX deliveries and whatnot. With this one, because my editor was on a Mac, until he literally switched to PC right after we finished, and I wish he didn't because we had some issues. I wish he would switch to the PC before, because we had issues with the Mac just being slow and crashing, whatever. And ever since he moved to the PC, not a single problem, just because the Mac was a little bit older and stuff. Not that Mac's worse or whatever, it was just older and not as beefy. But so we did a lot of things ProRes there, but deliveries back from anyone who's on a PC, which is pretty much all my VFX guys, is usually Cineform, and that one's worked out really nicely for us.
Nice.
Very cool.
What we got another question on here. Miguel Lara Q. What is the one best thing you got out of film school?
I think the Q means question. Is why he typed it.
Oh, really? Is there a Q on there? Oh, yeah. I just read your notes.
Now. No, it's the name now.
It is Lara Q. Here comes your answer to your question.
I like how gently you let him know. Hey, man.
I didn't see it on. Oh, now I see it on the chat. I'm looking at it on our notes.
Yeah.
And you wrote it before the colon.
No, you copied that one.
Oh, I did it. That's right, I did it.
It makes it even worse.
All right, Lara Q, you're up.
Lara Q.
What is the one best thing you got out of film school?
I went to again, at the time, which is what I always say, I went to film school because there was no information to be had like that. Like now you could do film school for what I went to film school for. You could just do it online and save the money. I think the only, in my own personal opinion, a lot of people disagree with me. I think the only real reason to go to film school now is networking and pure focus. Like if you can go to film school and only do that, you don't even have a job. That's what you're doing for the time that you're there, and focus in on, learning your craft. I think that's great. If you have the money for it, I don't think it's necessary, but that's great. But more than anything else, I think it's just networking. You're finding like-minded people that are going to be going the same trajectory as you, that you can, work with going forward. I think that's hugely valuable. But other than that, I think you can learn it all online. And the most talented
from places like FilmRide, maybe.
Not so much that, but other places. I would say 90% of the most talented friends I have did not go to film school, and no one outside of interviews like this, I mean, not job interviews, have ever asked me if I went to film school, let alone where I went to film school. So I don't think it's necessary, but at the time it was, because I was wondering if an AB switcher was something you could edit with. Yeah, I didn't know. It's so hard. All you could get were like catalogs of like cameras, and it's saying a bunch of crap, and I'm like, I don't know what this means, and I didn't have anybody to tell me. And even when you go and you buy books, those were confusing. So I went to film school really to find out where the buttons were and what they meant, basically. So it's like, here's what all the concepts are, and now go out and learn to be a filmmaker, basically, is what it was. So, and that was why I went to film school. I wanted to get in and out. I wanted to learn all the basic concepts, why light works the way it works, and hitting the celluloid or sensor now. Basic concepts for all the framing and composition. It was very little about story and a whole lot more about the tech side of it, which is what I wanted, so I could come out and start telling my stories. But now all of that is online. So the best thing I got was just the knowledge to start learning, basically, because like I've been saying a lot, it's just like you can have the knowledge, but it doesn't mean you have the understanding. It's like, just because you know how Roger Deakins lit a scene doesn't mean you can light a scene like Roger Deakins, because he understands how to light it.
Was intentional. That's awesome.
He has an understanding to it because of his experience, and you don't, unless you've gained that experience, and now you start having an understanding of, oh, that's why the light is reflecting off the skin in that way because of these, so basically that's what film school was for me. It gave me the knowledge to then go and build the understanding.
That's good.
Awesome.
That's awesome.
Long-winded answer.
No, I love him.
I'm sure Lara Q really appreciates it.
The Q is, I think.
So
he got the soft voice going too.
Yeah. I want to let you down. You see here?
I know. Thanks, buddy. That's why we get along, man. He's so nice to me.
So Cesar Perez Q here is asking, I want to sell a TV series that I wrote, but I do not know where to start. What advice would you give me?
Oh man, any advice I gave you would be pulling it out of my ass. I wouldn't want to, that's not my realm. TV is especially not my realm. On the film side, I have like some opinions that I'm forming based off the stuff that I'm doing, but I have no experience in television. So unfortunately, I don't have any advice to give there. It might be great though, is you'd be surprised who would be willing to talk to you. If you get an IMDb Pro account, a lot of times you'll find people, if you get them low level enough, you can get contacts for them there, or contact the office that they work for and, hey, this is who I am. I'm not trying to sell anything. I just really would love to pick, so-and-so's brain. I think he's brilliant, blah, blah. And you never know. Like, I have some friends, I'm not going to advertise who and what, because I don't want those people to get inundated with, a bunch of emails, but who reached out to some people that I was like, I'm sorry, what? Their contacts on IMDb, you can contact them directly, and they contacted them directly, and they were lovely people. And they responded with, hey, you know what, here's my cell phone number, let's jump on a call.
Wow.
Just 'cause my friend wanted to hit him up for some career advice. So reach out to people doing it, and maybe don't reach out to people making Game of Thrones. Maybe reach out to a very low level TV show, or even something that's like on YouTube Red or whatever. It's in the same realm, and see if you can find yourself someone even to mentor you through email for just a handful of emails. Just do that. Put yourself out there and see if you can get some advice from
we preach that all the time, and that goes back to your film school reference of networking. Like that's how we got in touch with you. We went to NAB and we spoke to you and just see what happens. Not everyone's going to say yes, unfortunately, but
you just got to don't be looking to get something. You don't tell him you're trying to sell this script. Don't try to sell the script to him. Ask for nothing more than for him, them, her, whoever it is, to be gracious enough to pass down a little bit of experience and knowledge to you, and look for the second you're like, hey, I have a script that I'm trying to sell, I'd like to talk about it. They're gonna be like, and goodbye. Because they have exactly 100,000 of those. But
for sure,
you'd be surprised how many of these people and my friends who you don't get any people that are humbly coming like, I need to learn, I don't know, I think the stuff that you do is brilliant, I just want to ask like a bit of advice for how to continue with my career, blah blah. That doesn't happen. People aren't self-aware in that way. People aren't looking to better themselves in that way. Everybody's looking for the get rich quick scheme or the read my script and buy it because I'm so great, it's my first script. It's like, nah man, probably isn't. You just got to keep trucking and whatever. So I would try that for sure. I've done that. That's how I got some of the feedback I got early on. Is James Wan gave me feedback on a short film of mine way back in the day because I just reached out and asked. Nice. So do that.
Let's go one more question on here at least. Brandon Fountain, who's an avid listener of ours, so we appreciate that. When you're looking for a building for your studio, what does it need? What do you need it to be ideal for? Like the room we see you have sets in. How did you do your research to prepare for that? Obviously, you have an office. I'm kind of elaborating on this question, but what is it that you look for in a studio?
What were you looking for?
Yeah, we're like a very specific case, obviously, and I think everybody's a very specific case. It's like, what do you make? So what you guys would need is gonna be totally different than what I would need. Even if you're doing a production company and YouTube show like us, it's like what you make is going to be, if you do like a lot of gear stuff, that's going to be totally different than if you do like something more film righty or sketch based or whatever. And we do a lot of like sketch stuff around so like trying to find something that would work visually for all the sketches we do to where we could do most of the stuff here because we're so fast moving. Was something that we tried to do but failed miserably. This is basically just like a giant hallway, so it's really hard to shoot sketches and stuff here and make it good or interesting. So that's been tough. But really it was just like finding something that would be the size we needed, that would let us grow for a few years, was within a budget range. We're loud and weird, so it had to have a little bit of space, so it couldn't be like straight up wall to wall connected to somebody else, because that wouldn't go well. I'm sure they would call the cops on us when we're screaming stuff like, you stabbed me in the chest, or
and how many
God, the blood, or whatever.
How many times have you killed Josh on
And we've already been outside doing some every house that I've ever lived at, our neighbors thought we were psychos. So
I can imagine.
That's a legit thought process of us, of what's the surrounding area around the office. Is this going to work for us, or are our neighbors going to want us out of there? A big enough room for us to put the studio in, so like the green screen stuff and what have you. That was pretty much the baseline criteria, and everything else was like icing on the cake.
That's good.
I wanted to have my own office, obviously, because of the type of stuff that I do.
When
but
the doors
we're
closed,
still a small company, so it's like, you're not really looking for the ideal space. You're hoping for the ideal space, but you're probably not going to find it at the budgets you're working at. So it was just trying to find the thing that would make the most sense for us. And there's some kind of beep happening over there.
I was wondering where that came from.
Time to find a new office.
Is that Josh getting revenge?
No, it's probably I got to put a new battery in the fire alarm. No, it's actually a light that has a battery on it.
Nice.
So yeah, we just kind of those things.
All right, Nate Potter, silly question if there's time. Pancakes or waffles?
French toast. What up?
Damn.
Left turn, son.
Damn. The forbidden third option.
Yeah.
That's good. That was a good one there. All right, so Braden, sorry dude, I'm gonna Ledbetter.
Yep.
All right. What are some differences between editing your own work and working with Lucas as your editor on Ballistic?
With editing your own work, there's a lot more subjectivity involved. I mean, you're also already subjective because I mean, you might have been the one that wrote it, like me, but you're definitely the one that directed it. If you're talking about from a director standpoint, of course, and now you're the one editing it, so you're the one doing all three of the major rights of the film, writing portions of the film, and you're not having a moment to step back and be objective in any way. With an editor, my hands aren't on the tools. He's doing the things that I wanted him to do, and he's cutting to script at first, of course, and he's even doing the things where I'm, put this shot here, put this shot there, trim it to this, time remap to that, scale to this, blah blah blah. And he's doing all the things that I'm telling him to do, but I'm not the one doing it, and I'm not seeing the tech side of it. So I'm actually able to be a lot more objective, and I'm able to feel the scene a lot more like an audience would. And just pay attention to the intention and the creativity behind it all instead of worrying about any of the tech. So how much it freed me up to do that kind of blew my mind. I don't think I'll ever edit any of my own films ever again unless I absolutely have to. A friend of mine who has taught me a lot has been telling me for years, get an editor. And I'm like, do you just think I'm a bad editor? Like, why are you doing this? He's like, I'm telling you, man, enough, get an editor. Stop, get an editor. And
it's like when someone says, do you have any gum?
Yeah, totally.
Why?
I text him like first day of editing with Lucas, and I was like, all right, I see what you're saying. And he's like, thank you.
Wow.
But it's so different. It frees you as much as it frees you up to direct an actor, not to be the one in it. It's the same thing. It's like, he's performing the film in sort of a way. Same thing as getting a DP. If I'm the one lighting the scene, I'm not just sitting at the monitor worrying about the scene. I'm worrying about the lighting, and I'm focusing in on that heavily, what the camera's doing. And of course I'm worried about that as the director, and I'm thinking about that, but somebody else is handling the ones and zeros of it. Sure. I'm looking at the piece as a whole, and that's what's most important for me to do, is to get really talented people together and then guide the ship as a whole. I'm not, manning every station. So having that has been intensely valuable. And, the film definitely came out 10 times better than if I were to have cut it myself. Because I'm also, I've edited for other people even, but, I'm not an editor for sure. Definitely not a technical editor. So my projects can be a little bit sloppy,
Yeah.
And I don't know all the ins and outs. Like, obviously I've been doing it long enough to know most of them, but he has all the editor tricks. Whereas, I'm a writer, producer, director. That's what I am. He's an editor. So, his organization and, all the tricks that he's learned over the years, just focusing on that made the whole thing a lot faster and freed us up to be more creative, to like change on the fly, take hard left turns, and then come right back. So I was also able to explore and discover more than I ever had before, because he's managing all that. So I can be like, what if we do a version where it's this instead? You know what I mean? And you just try things like crazy until you find the best version of the film you're trying to make, and it made that 1,000 times easier too.
I actually have like one last question. I have a follow-up on that. So when someone else is going to edit this, was it important that he was at the shoot with you, or did he have a certain kind of format which he needed the files to be, or did he kind of figure out how you worked or how you organized everything?
No, I mean, you have that conversation, and then you would have DIT on set, and they would ingest all the footage and organize it, and then he would get those drives, and then he organizes it in his own project in his own way. And whether he's making proxies or just working with the footage directly, that's however he wants to work. And oftentimes you have like an assistant editor that's handling all that and just setting up the project, but we're very low budget, so there was no assistant editor, so he had to do all of that, and he did all the syncing as well.
Wow.
But on this, I've kind of been on this was the first time I did it, and I like the idea of involving the editor and the DP a lot sooner and a lot more, because I mean there's 4 avenues for writing the film. I think you have the script, you have directorial, you have the visual, and then you have the edit. And these are all ways of writing the story and the emotion. So the idea of having them more deeply involved way up front makes a lot of sense to me. So Lucas was very involved in the beginning, and we had a lot of conversations, in LA and definitely before Texas, and because we also cut all the action stuff first, and then we shot all the stuff in Texas, which is like stuff that happened. It's a little more thrillery, nighttimey type stuff. So we had all that time to really talk about what this was going to do and what it meant in the script, and then he was on set just as like backup. He did a lot of DIT work on set, but also just being at the monitor, you know, so I could come to him and be like, hey, this is what I'm doing. What do you think? That's going to work, right? Don't you think? And just having that backup was great, especially because it was a very large machine. In LA, we had 80, 85 people on set at one point.
Wow.
Texas was a lot smaller.
I didn't realize it was that big.
It was the biggest thing I've ever done. So it was a little intimidating, but you know, it went great. And Texas was 35, 40-ish people, which is what the Bloodtober stuff was. So
that's it. Okay.
Too bad. Yeah. I mean, the whole thing was like, hey, if I wanted to make a feature, I wanted to do it entirely myself. This is how I would do it. Let's do that. You know, and it was kind of an experiment in that on like, you know, can you go entirely independent but still chase the Hollywood method in your own way? You know, because like I said, if nobody's going to give me a feature, I'm going to go get it for myself. I'm going to make features.
Damn right.
And yeah, and this was a great experience, an experiment, and you know, gaining that knowledge or that understanding rather, like I was talking about, so I can go on and be paid. But some people do. You know, when I asked, you know, them to come out and dedicate X amount of time to a feature, they can look back and see, okay, he's built all this understanding. He took the time to invest in his own knowledge so that we can trust him and, you know, go forward doing something like this. So that's why we do things like that. But on these things, I'm still, no matter what I do, for better or worse, I always end up reaching way higher than the budget or, you know, resources will allow. So it always makes it harder for myself. But, you know, I don't know, it's just the way I'm doing it for whatever reason.
The film right way, man.
I just accept it and just go with it. But
bigger is better. Bigger is better.
Yeah, totally. So that always ends up being way too many shots per day, way too many gags per day. This is just not possible. And then hitting a point in every single day where it's, hey, we're not going to make the day. So we got to, which is every production too. We're not, you know, I'm not unique to that. Everybody I know has the same sort of thing. But in those moments when you have that many people and this is an action scene and those many wheels turning, it's really hard to throw out every ounce of the plan that you had, construct an entirely new plan that you hadn't thought of before, what you're doing based off the intentions that, you know, you had in place, and make sure you still have all the coverage when there is an 8-person, you know, action scene going on with 4 different perspectives and pyrotechnics and all this thing. And, you know, the shot list is gone. All the ideas you had are gone, and now you're just making it up. Camera here, camera there, camera there, and you have 7 or 8 cameras. So having Lucas there to be at the monitor, take notes, and me go over sidebar with him real quick. Hey, this is what I'm doing. This is why I'm doing it. Here with the cameras. Here's what I'm seeing for the scene and how it's going to cut. Thoughts. And then he can be like, you're forgetting this, or you're good to go. And be like, cool. You know, so it's a nice check-in, like, hey, double check me here. Check my math. Am I good? Okay, cool. So just having him on set for those things, especially, was really helpful. Or, you know, having to cut off something that was a bridge to something else. Like we can't do that. This shot's not going to work because of the location. We're out of budget. This person went home, whatever it was, and being like, okay, we need to get from A to B, but we no longer have that bridge. What if I do this? Do you think that'll work in the cut? Yes, no, hey, how about this? You know, that stuff was extremely helpful. I've heard there's more and more editors being on set, but I don't think it's that common, but it's definitely something that I want to do going forward for sure.
Yeah, it seems like that would be a very helpful thing to have when your editor is on set with you, so you're all on the same page and he's not I guess surprised, you know.
Yeah, totally. And you know, more often than not, especially with bigger films, you have the editor editing while the film is happening. But I feel like I would rather have an assistant editor creating assemblies and the editor being on set with me, and then me and my editor going and watching assemblies together at the end of the day.
I've never had an editor edit too many things for me, where I generally edit most of my stuff, but I actually just edited a film. I was the editor on a feature film we're finishing up, and I didn't understand before this the relationship that you form with the director, and you're such a huge part of the process. And I'm not saying that other people aren't. But oh my gosh, the director and the editor put so much time together, and it's just the next really huge step. Like you said, writing and then production. It's like 3 different completely rearrangements of the creative, like the concept. Totally. It starts in pre, it changes in production, and then it changes again in post. And it's so crazy how that works. I never realized that, but it was a really cool process to work with an editor.
It's like the 3 marriages the director has in production. It's like the screenwriter, the DP, and the editor. I've always been the writer, but you know, moving away from being the DP and getting one, moving away from being the editor and getting one, you know, it's blown my mind how much of, you know, that marriage is. And you know, they're there to help support what you're trying to pull off in your vision, but you know, you get talented people and you also trust their vision. And you know, once they understand you're all on the same page what this is, and sometimes, you know, it's super interesting. Even my composer, sometimes you don't fully see it, you feel it, but you don't, this works and this feels right, and I can't 100% articulate, but I'm going off my gut. You know, that happens. And
that's good.
You know, my composer Daniel James on this one was like, this is why this works, and this is why I think we should do the music like this, because I think watching this is what you did, this is what you pulled off, this is what the moment means. And I'm like, oh my God, you're right, thank you. That's it. That's the way to articulate, you know what I mean? That's exactly it. And he was able to see that and help flesh that out even further. So a lot of the times they'll even see what you're trying to pull off and be like, hey, you know, I think, you know, maybe you're not having the confidence to go 100% for what clearly is your intention or not, but here's what I see and here's what I think. And sometimes it's like, no, and here's why we're going to do it this way. But then, you know, others, it's like, yes, you're right. And now it's, you know, way better thanks to that collaboration. I used to think that because I had to do everything, I come from the school of, you know, we all doing absolutely everything yourself. So I used to think I was way more of a tyrant with my ideas. Like, this is my vision. This is what it is. Not a word will be changed. Not a camera motion will be changed. Nothing. Not cut. Nothing. And then I've come to find out, no, I'm like intensely collaborative. It's still like, it ends up being the same vision I, you know, started with, as far as what I'm trying to say, the intention, the experience that I'm trying to give to the audience, but it all shifts, you know, that ebb and flow throughout with all these different collaborators that, you know, don't put their like fingerprint on it. I mean, we're all putting our fingerprints on it, but they polish it as it goes by them, and it just keeps getting more and more refined until it comes out the other end way more beautiful than anything I would have done on my own.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that's really cool.
I think the whole auteur idea is nonsense. There's no such thing.
Right.
You know, it's a village no matter what.
Yeah, I like what you usually often say. You love working with people that are more talented than you because first, I mean, they're always going to lift you up.
Which is pretty much everybody.
Come on, man. This was
so humble.
No, this is me just wanting you to compliment me to the public. No, say nice things.
Tell me how good I am, guys.
Tell me.
Oh man, hey, this was a terrific episode. We could go on.
Yeah, man.
I think we have a few more hours to.
We haven't hit 3 hours yet.
Yeah, we haven't hit 3 hours. So, no, this was a great episode. We had a ton of people coming by, listening live. Thank you to everyone that joined. Obviously, you don't need any introduction or any plugs, but go ahead and let everyone know, I guess, you know, filmright.com. Does it have its own website? Or?
There is a filmright.com, but right now it's still Bloodtober.
Wasn't that 2 Octobers ago?
Yeah, it sure was. We've never really had like a real official like filmright.com. We did like way in the beginning, like Squarespace made us a site, but I was never happy with it and I never did anything with it. But we have been behind the scenes for like 6 months or so, been working finally on a filmright.com, which is coming out this month finally.
All right.
By the beginning of next month, end of this month, probably right with the podcast, we'll have a filmright.com.
Podcast, filmright.com, and Ballistic Trailer all dropping on us really soon. Oh my goodness.
I'm so tired, guys.
Thanks for fitting us in, dude. Jesus.
Are you excited yet?
Yeah, seriously.
A little bit. A little bit. Might be all the drugs, though. I don't know. Just kidding. Don't do drugs. But yeah, right now the central hub is youtube.com/filmright. But in a few weeks, it'll be filmright.com.
Awesome.
Nice. And then you have your Triune store online, and that's Triune Films or something.
That's just triunestore.com.
Nice. And that's where you guys can find all the LUT packs, all the sound packs, all you sell your shorts there as well, correct? Because I know
it's kind of like why would you sell your shorts online for free? We really sell on like the special features that go along with it.
Right.
Much it helps us try to recoup the cost of making it, because sure, we have sponsors on it, but I always put a ton of my own money because I can't help myself into these things. So we're trying to recoup the cost of making the thing, and then on top of that, all the money we make for that just goes right into a production fund so we can try to make the next thing. So we'll be selling Ballistic too, and I'm stoked about the special features that are going to be on that. I think people are really going to dig that.
That's such a good idea, man. The way you guys do your stuff on Film Riot gets me so excited to see not just the film, but everything and how you got it done. And for you just to sell it makes me buy it, which it's not a bad thing. It feels like I'm contributing to the film and what you guys do. So it's really cool you do that, and people should go check those out because they're awesome.
Thanks, man. We try to put like a lot of it online as well for free, but then there's just that additional like stuff, the icing.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, definitely. I actually picked up Proximity, even though I had already seen it. I went ahead and picked it up. Back then, like Blu-ray was a thing, and so I picked up Proximity, and all the special features and all that stuff was the extra features was actually really, really good.
Yeah, and Ballistic, I'm stoked about. I think I'm gonna do like a breakdown like of scenes and stuff, because there was just a lot with this one, and I learned more on this with this short film than anything I'd ever done. Because like I said, we kind of made it like how we would be making a feature film, so there was a lot learned on this one. So trying to fill out the special features with that stuff.
How many BTS shooters did you have on set for that stuff?
For LA, we had 2 officially, but there was like 4 people there shooting, but
Random
it was
stuff,
really just 2. But Josh is like a BTS ninja. He needs
no
assistance.
He loves it, huh?
Yeah. Well, he's good at it. I would say he loves it. But in Texas, he pulled double duty. He was kind of like my second unit director, going and picking off stuff that I couldn't. And then which you'll see, the overly stylized moments, that's Josh. You'll know when you see the film. Well, in the trailer, you see there's those quick cuts that happen right before it goes into action. That's the stuff that Josh shot. So a lot of that. I don't want to say anything that gives
overachiever.
When you see the trailer, you'll see. So he was BTS and second unit direction at the exact same time,
man.
Which I did on this like $1 million short film like a while ago, which I can't say what it was because reasons. But I did the same thing. I had to do second unit for that thing. Plus, I was producing the BTS. I wasn't shooting BTS, but I was producing it. So I was pulling double duty like that. So I was like, yeah, now you have to.
Nice. That's always so
feel my pain.
All right, man. Dude, I don't want to take more of your time. You've been more than gracious with us, giving us your time, your info. A lot of people here on the chat have been loving the information that you've been giving. And I'm sure people, once we post this, people are going to love the information when they hear it afterwards. So much appreciated. Thank you for joining us on the show. Ryan Connolly, it's at Ryan_Connolly for social media, Twitter and Instagram. You can follow him there, guys. Check out Triune Store. I think it's YouTube/Film Riot. You guys know all the information. I mean,
it'll all be in the show notes as usual.
It's all going to be in the show notes for this episode over at iFilmmakerpodcast.com. Thank you to everyone that joined us on this one. And Ryan, thanks again, bud. We're going to have you for our 200th episode.
100th.
Yeah, do it.
Yes.
We're going to redo it.
No, this is the 100th.
That would be amazing.
Every 100th episode, we'll have you back on.
I'll be honored.
As a special feature. All right, buddy. All right, guys. Thank you for joining us. And we're going to go ahead and sign off on this one. Ryan, Anthony. See you
later, guys.
Thanks,
Ryan.
Thank you.